Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name is Lia Villaeva, and today we're talking about the movie El 47. Barcelona is a city of many lives and many tales. The Catalan capital on the Mediterranean coast has always been a city that has attracted immigration, whether people have come in search of better jobs, a better life, and the Barcelona residents, all the new ones, are also known as a group of people who are always ready to fight for their rights. The latest movie, El 47, is a film that tells one of these stories. On today's podcast, we delve into one of the stories of a neighborhood fighting for basic services, and we hear from the director of the movie and some of the main characters. We also talk to the residents of the Barcelona neighborhood in question, Torre Baró, about what life is like there now. I'm joined today by Emma Monros. Welcome back, Emma.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So the movie El 47 just came out, and it's based on the real movie of a very special moment in the history of neighborhood activism in the city. So Emma, tell me more about this moment and of course what the movie is all about.
So the movie takes place in 1978 in Barcelona in the neighborhood of Torre Baró. The residents of the tiny neighborhood had built it from the ground up and were living without basic services such as water, electricity, and even schools and public transportation.
You said public transportation because when residents requested a bus, the city council at the time denied it, and they said that it was completely impossible to drive a bus in the neighborhood. They argued that it was too dangerous because the streets were too narrow, it went too uphill, because Torre Baró was and still is obviously located in the Collserola mountain range that surrounds Barcelona.
Yes, and this triggered the bus driver and resident of Torre Baró, Manolo Vital, which is the movie's main character, who one day decided to hijack the city bus that he was driving, the number 47, hence the title of the movie, and drive it up to the mountain to show authorities that it was, in fact, possible to get a bus there.
And the story is such a fantastic story. Both of us watched the movie. I cried on several occasions. What did you think about it, Emma?
Well, I did not cry, but I could definitely feel those sensitive moments. And yeah, I think it's a really well-made movie. It tells the story beautifully. It shows a part of Barcelona that maybe it's not usually seen. Also an old part of Barcelona, which I think it's fantastic to learn about. And there's also some humor touches, but you learn a lot.
And one of the things that you kind of mentioned that I also particularly appreciated in the movie is that they used old footage of old Barcelona. So you could see actually what Barcelona looked like in that period, which was in the 70s.
Yes, and they made it look like you're taking a bus trip around old Barcelona. And I think that was one of my favorite moments of the film, because you literally feel like you are there in that moment and you're just on the bus that's being driven around the city.
I totally agree. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. So a huge recommendation from us. And so as I mentioned before, the movie is based on this real life story in Torre Baró. But explain to me, how did this neighborhood come about?
Okay, so it's an interesting story and it's not totally uncommon to Barcelona or the metropolitan area. Barcelona and Catalonia had quite a few waves of immigration from the rest of Spain, both in the 19th and the 20th century. And during the early years of the Franco dictatorship in the 1950s and 1960s, many immigrants from Andalusia and Extremadura region came to Catalonia and to Barcelona. They came to escape fascist repression, and they also tried to find a better job and a better life. Some of these immigrants came to Torre Baró, where they built their own houses with their hands, stone by stone.
Literally.
Yes.
And that's also a very big part of the film, that people came and built their own houses. And I think a very special detail about the movie, and the reality, of course, is that they had to build these houses at night. Because in theory, it was illegal to build there, but there was kind of a tiny loophole in the law.
Yes, so there was a lot of strict controls during the day by the regime's police, and they would tear down anything that they saw that was being constructed, except if it had a roof. So during the night, they built this. They had to work those hours enough to build a roof, which is the last part of the house.
Yes, so that was kind of the difficult part, and you could see in the movie that they are all scrambling and running around to build their houses very, very quickly and to put the roof on top of it. And sometimes it didn't work out, and then the regime would come and tear it all down, and they would have to start all over again.
Exactly. And these houses were the first parts of the neighborhood that started building. But until 1973, the neighborhood didn't have paved streets, running water in their houses, or street light.
But this movie is centered around Torre Baró. This is just one example of a similar story that has taken place in Barcelona.
Yes, there are other examples, and they are places that are located on the outskirts of the city, so they can be less known. For example, Roquetas, which is also located in the No Barris district. There's Pobla Sec in Montjuic, specifically the area of Cantunis. Somorrostro, which was on the beach, and we have also talked about in a podcast previously, so make sure to listen to that. There's also houses in Al Carmel and Bon Pastor, which is a little bit of a different story because there were the Casas Baratas, but they also had to fight a lot in their neighborhood and in the community to have a medical care center, a metro, which opened back in 2010, so not that long ago.
Not that long ago. And the Casas Baratas in Bon Pastor, we also did a podcast about, so also make sure to check that one out. And you had the chance to speak with some of the main characters of the film and also the director Marcel Barrena.
Marcel Barrena explained to Catalan News that creating this film was a way of telling a different story of Barcelona, but more importantly about being aware of what we have and where it comes from.
For me, it was a kind of a spectacular to feel and to see that in Barcelona there is a lot of walls inside of our world. So there's a lot of Barcelonas inside of Barcelona. So if you take a walk across Torre Baró, you will feel that actually you are in Barcelona, but also you will feel that you are not in Barcelona. And I think it's the most shocking part of this process for me, and actually to feel and to know that we have to be super respectful with our past and not give everything for granted.
The main character is played by Eduard Fernandez. His character, Manolo Vital, is the one who hijacked the bus to bring it to Torre Baró. He tells us a little more about what it meant to play this character.
Al Manolo le tinc un carinyo especial.
I have a special affection for Manolo. He was a good man. He was someone who did not speak much, but when he did, everyone stopped and listened to him. He involuntarily became a revolutionary. He was a leader without wanting to be, in a natural way. He defended the dignity of immigrants, personal dignity, community dignity, and the dignity of a neighbourhood. He did not take part in protests generally, but he did in a very specific manner to get something in particular done.
He also told us that while there are some characters that he doesn't personally like but still finds interesting to play, other characters teach him a lot, and not just in acting. And Manolo is one of them.
Manolo is someone I love dearly, a character I like a lot, someone who has built Barcelona and Catalonia. Should we take immigrants into account or not? Are they important or not? They are part of this city because they have built it with their hands. I have not. And they are people who have been expelled from their homes, which is something really hard for anyone. He had to leave his home and go somewhere else. He built his house and fully integrated with total respect into his new surroundings, in this case Catalonia, and learned Catalan and integrated with respect, and that is really endearing.
There are other great actors in the film, such as Zoe Bonafonte, who plays the daughter of Manolo Vital, and Carlos Cuevas, who plays a young Pascual Maragall, who at the time was working on the city council but went on to become mayor of Barcelona and president of Catalonia. These actors and the director himself explained that this film taught them a lot about Barcelona, and especially the hidden parts about Barcelona or the less exposed parts of the city.
I didn't know the story at all, but it was pretty insane and incredible to think that this happened so recently. People are still alive, the people that lived this period and this story. It is crucial to remember the history and the story, because if we don't, we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. And
Yeah.
this type of movies, they expose the reality that was going on.
One of the most beautiful gifts we've had with this film is not just learning but showing how many Barcelonas we have. Barcelona is full of neighborhoods, full of suburbs, full of places that people came so many years ago and had to fight for building their houses, for having water, and this is where we came from. Barcelona is not only a touristic park, and explaining this in cinema with so much dignity, I think it's very grateful as an actor and as a storyteller like him. So this is one of the thing that makes me prouder of this film.
I think that we have to be thankful for our past and to know our past in order to create a better future, because it's a lot of people suffering before us, and Manolo Vital was one of them, and all these people was, they create Barcelona.
Thanks to the director and the actors of El 47 for speaking with us. One thing that the movie left me wondering was, how is the neighborhood Torre Baró doing today?
Okay, so I had the chance to talk with some of the people that live there right now, and they mentioned that it's not the same exactly, but they still have a lot of problems, and there's a lot of similarities, but they fight for different things, but they still fight. Something that was a bit surprising for me to find out was that in 2023, so last year, it was the first time that the neighborhood of Torre Baró had Christmas lights.
Okay.
Because there is no commerce in the neighborhood, and usually in Barcelona and in cities of Catalonia, they put Christmas lights where there are businesses and shops and stuff like that, but there are no big shops or shops in Torre Baró. So the neighbors, they did the Christmas lights by themselves with flexible strips of LED lights, and they used these lights to represent like historical moments of the neighborhood or traditional parts, such as the community cookings, the gegants, which are the traditional giant figures of the neighborhood, and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, I saw some photos when they put up the lights at the time, and they were really, really interesting. Also, especially if you want to learn something about the history of the neighborhood. And going back to the movie, it was all about the residents' fight to gain basic services, including a bus. So I assume that now Torre Baró has a bus line.
Yes, they do have a bus line, more than one. They also have a train station, and they have a metro station, which opened recently. But they still have problems with public transport, and it's not only about Renfe. They demand that the public transport, especially the bus lines, don't cover all the area in the neighborhood. So that is why in 2019, the city council created a bus on demand, so residents could call this bus line or register through an app to get a small bus to arrive to certain areas of the town. But there's still a lot of dissatisfaction, as the residents say that some do not know how to use the app because there's a lot of older people living in the neighborhood. Sometimes there are incidences with the bus, and it usually never gets there on the time that you ask for.
Okay. And also, I'm just thinking that if you have to order a bus, then that just kills all spontaneity, right? That, well, you have to plan everything in advance.
Yes, some of the residents mentioned that these, like usually older people ask for a bus if they want to go to the doctor or something. And you cannot plan when you're going to get sick and be like, tomorrow pick me up at this time because I'm not going to feel well and I want to go to the hospital. So it's one of the struggles that the residents say that this bus on demand has, and that is why they are demanding for a regular bus line to have a proper schedule.
Okay, and why don't they have that yet?
Well, the city council says that in the area there is not enough demand and usage in order to create a stable bus route.
Okay.
But the residents are still in contact with the city council about this topic in specific.
And while you were there, you talked to the neighborhood association. What was that like?
Well, they told me that they had seen the film on the cinema and they really liked it, but they also got the feeling while watching it that things haven't changed that much since the 1970s. And now they are also continuously demanding things for the neighborhood from the city council, some things that they said should be basics.
All right, well, let's hear it from them.
On my visit to Torre Baró, I spoke with José Antonio Martínez and José Manuel Romero, residents and members of the local neighborhood association. They told me about some of those demands, like the car park in one of the squares. The parking lot was built 10 years ago, but still no one knows when it will open or if it will even open, as well as the other parking areas that were promised for ambulances. José Manuel says that it would be really useful for the people that go to the clinic in that square, because they park on the sidewalks. If there were an open parking lot, they would park there, and he says that the council should start working on it. But so far they haven't got a reply on why is it closed. Regular power outages are another huge problem for the neighborhood. Before, some houses would be left without electricity for a few hours, but now entire streets go days without power. Some of these outages were caused by a power transformer that was old and did not work well, leading to huge problems in 2020 and 2021.
L'any de la pandèmia 2020-2021, què passa? Que hi havia un generador...
Some people, like José Antonio's mother, needed an oxygen machine at all times, which was connected to the current. Others used beds that ran on electricity that helped them get out. There were problems with the infrastructure, and some residents had chronic illnesses that required electricity to make their life a little bit better. Without minimum maintenance, they were left without basic services that their lives depended on. After many complaints to the city council, the power transformer was replaced. And right now, residents see that there is no light on various streets in Torre Baró. There are occasional cable thefts in the street with no houses nearby affected. But the residents keep asking the council to bury the cables underground to deter robberies. For José Manuel, it is quite a stupid way to spend money. He suggests using aluminum cables instead of copper, as they are currently, because this is cheaper. It's an issue they've been asking the local authorities to look into, but the council says the electricity company Endesa has an insurance policy that can pay for it, so it does not matter to the company if they steal it. All the while, residents are left to complain, going long periods without lights. The neighbors have always had lists of demands for the council, but their manner of protest has changed a lot in recent years.
No es present de la mateixa manera.
José Antonio says that older and younger neighbors are still taking to the streets and fighting. But he thinks that from the 1990s, the city council created a lot of bureaucracy that prevents direct action and makes it harder to get to the point where they want. José Manuel, who has been part of the neighborhood association for many years, thinks they also need more people in the demonstrations and for all the neighborhoods to get involved, as used to happen more often in the past.
Thanks to José Manuel y José Antonio from the Neighborhood Association of Torre Baró for speaking with us. So, obviously, the movie is all about Barcelona history and lives, but what other movies have been set in Barcelona?
Well, there are quite a few, and not all of them are based on true stories. Most of them are fiction. But maybe you know this one because it was directed by Woody Allen. It's called Vicky Cristina Barcelona, and it's from 2008.
Yes, I watched it when it came out, and I really liked it.
There's also All About My Mother by Pedro Almodóvar, which in Spanish is Todo sobre mi madre, from 1999.
Another movie that made me cry a lot.
Beautiful by Alejandro González de Iñárritu is also based in Barcelona. There is also the series of The Cathedral of the Sea from 2018, which is based on the book by Ildefonso Falcones about the construction of the Santa María del Mar.
Yeah, and one can argue that it kind of has a similar feel to El 47 because it's the neighbors of that area that decide to build their own church, and they build it stone by stone.
Yes, exactly. And then there are some more fantastic fictional movies, like, for example, The Barcelona Vampires or La Vampira de Barcelona from 2020, directed by Lluís Danés. And there's also Bird Box Barcelona, which is a spin-off sequel of the 2018 film Bird Box.
Well, that's a great list. I would like to add just a few honorable mentions. There's the movie Perfume, the story of a murderer, which is also based on a book. And the story actually takes place in Paris, but a large part of the movie was actually filmed in Barcelona. And then there is For the Crown fans. The season 6 scenes about the car chase that led to the death of Princess Diana were also shot in Barcelona. And when I watched season 6, I could actually recognize a couple of places. So that was pretty cool.
I tried to, but it all looked like Paris for me.
Well, then I guess they did a good job.
Yeah.
It's time now for the Catalan phrase of the week. What is it this week, Emma?
This week it's Fer més voltes que un rellotge.
Fer més voltes que un rellotge. So what does that mean?
It means to work a lot, and it literally means to spin more than a clock.
But the English version of this phrase would be to work around the clock.
Exactly.
And that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcast if you haven't already. Thanks again to everyone from El 47. A big thanks to José Antonio and José Manuel from the Torre Baró Neighborhood Association for speaking with us. And thanks to you, Emma.
Thank you.
And we'll be back again next Saturday with another episode of Filling the Sink. On behalf of the team here at Catalan News, I'm Leah Bellaeva, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.